This week, global manufacturing is under pressure again. Costs are rising, but not where you expect. Exports are falling even when global demand is growing, and oil shocks, they haven't even hit margins yet. Meanwhile, governments are rewriting regulation. China is tightening control over critical equipment, and factories are quietly transforming into AI-driven systems. If you are into manufacturing, these aren't just headlines. They are the early signals of margin pressure, supply chain disruption, and competitive shifts. And if you miss them and you lose, don't lose immediately, you will lose slowly over the next few quarters. Let's break it down. If you are new here, this is the INDUSTRIQO, where we break down global manufacturing shifts and what they actually mean for operators. So we will go layer by layer, cost pressures, policy and regulation shifts, technological innovations, and how it's all connected to your operations. And at every step, I'll tell you exactly what it means and what you should do. So let's start with the cost pressure section, and let's start with something fundamental, steel, because right now steel producers are making more money while manufacturers are paying more. So major US steel producers like Nucor and Steel Dynamics are expecting a strong surge in quarter one of 2026 earnings. And key drivers are the high domestic steel supply prices, stronger demand across industrial sectors, and protective US tariffs on imported steel. And the analysts expect the significant year-on-year EPS growth, very high double digit to triple digit in some cases for these steel companies. It happened due to the tariff reducing foreign competition like US tariff section 232 framework, continue to limit cheaper imports and keep domestic prices elevated. And moreover, there is a strong domestic demand supported by infrastructure projects, automotive production, data centers, and manufacturing reshoring. And rising steel prices, domestic steel prices remain high due to supply tightness, import restrictions, and these directly improve the margins. And it directly affects the steel producers, Nucor Steel Dynamics, and US Steel. And indirectly, the automotive industry, construction sectors, infrastructure developers, and etc. Immediately, you will see there will be a earning surge expected and stock market optimism and margin expansion and strong order backlog. And in long term, you will see that the steel cycle will strengthen, tariff dependency becomes structural, and reindustrialization trends accelerate, and volatility risks remain same. And there are risks involved like the tariff reversal risk, demand slowdown risk, input cost volatility, and commodity cycle downside. And there are certain opportunities like the strong earning cycle, this is the domestic manufacturing boom, pricing power advantage that you had, and the shareholders return. So what you should do, you should lock in steel procurement contracts, use hedging or long-term contracts to manage price swings, and plan for higher input costs because steel costs may remain elevated in the cycle. And you should improve the material efficiency. You reduce your steel usage per product via design and optimization. You should diversify your suppliers, avoid dependency on single region steel pricing. So this isn't just a steel story, it's a pricing power story, and not everyone is on the winning side. Now, here is something that doesn't look right at the first. Exports are falling even when the global trade is growing. Minnesota exports fell 13% year on year, dropping to about $23.5 billion. And this is a 3.4 billion dollars decline compared to the previous year. And the drop came despite the overall US export increasing to around 6%. And the key declining categories included vehicles, machinery, optical and medical products. And the major export markets also weakened like the Canada, China, and Mexico. It happened due to the tariff created war because tariffs created direct cost at a disadvantage. There is a economic uncertainty, which is a very big driver for this. Demand slowdown in the key markets and energy-related export had declined. So directly the Minnesota export manufacturers, logistics trade operators, and agricultural operators are affected. And indirectly, the factory workers, US Midwest, industrial supply chain, and trade-dependent SMEs are affected. And immediately you will see the revenue drop for exporters, increased business uncertainty, and manufacturing sentiment will weaken. In long run, you will see there will be a structural shift in trade strategy, supply chain regionalization, and permanent loss of some market share. And long-term export competitiveness, decline, margin pressure, investment slowdown. These are the risk involved, and opportunities like supply chain diversification, domestic manufacturing revival, and companies are forced to automate and optimize costs. Firms can now rebuild stronger, more resilient export strategies. So, what you should do? You should diversify your export exposure, avoid our dependence on Canada, China, and Mexico, and build tariff-aware pricing models like the policy risk and cost volatility factoring them, and strengthen your demand forecasting. Use data analytics and market intelligence tools, and you should rebuild your supply chain flexibility, multi-region sourcing production. So this is how the fragmentation starts, not with a crash, but with a slow shifts in trade flows. Now this is critical because most manufacturers miss hit this. The real cost shock hasn't hit yet. The WD-40 is warning that its costs for petroleum-based raw materials are rising due to the Iran war-driven oil shock, and the company expects the higher input costs to flow into their financial results with a 90 to 120 delay. This means that the quarter one looks stable, but the quarter three, four of FY 2026 margins will feel the real pressure, and it happened due to the Iran war, and moreover, the WD-40 depends on the petroleum-based chemicals. And moreover, there is a global petrochemical chain inflation. Oil increases, it affects the plastic packaging chemicals. Similar inflation pressure seen across manufacturing sectors. And moreover, there is an inventory lag. WD-40 uses existing stock before new cost hits. It creates a time delay of 3 to 4 months before the margins reflect show. So it had directly affected the WD-40 company, the petroleum chemical suppliers, and the lubricant manufacturers, and indirectly the automotive industry, industrial maintenance sectors, and global CPG companies. Immediately, in short term, you will see there will be no immediate margin shock yet, but rising cost signals begin appearing, and investor attention is shifting, and the pricing pressures are expectations are building. In long run, you will see that the delayed inflation wave across the manufacturing, more aggressive pricing strategy, and supply chain redesigns will accelerate. Margin compression lag, demand slowdown risk, and geopolitical volatility become structural. These are the risks involved, and supply chain optimization, pricing power, tech-driven supply shift, and competitive advantage for resilience firms. These are the opportunities that are forming. So what you should do, you should treat oil as a geopolitical variable, not just a cost input, but a risk indicator. You should build cost lag awareness systems, understood that today's oil spike is future's margin impact, and you should strengthen your procurement forecasting, use commodity tracking and scenario planning, and you should diversify your sourcing network, reduce dependency on single region petrochemical supply chains. So what you see today will hit your margins tomorrow. Most manufacturers don't lose money suddenly, they lose it slowly through cost blind spots like this. If you want to identify these gaps inside your business, there is something in the description that might can help you. Now let's move on to the policy and regulation. And let's start with something strategic. India and Austria has signed 15 agreements, and this is bigger than what it looks. They had signed 15 agreements, MOUs, LOIs, in initiatives covering the defense cooperation, counter-terrorism, technology innovation, trade and investment facilitation, and education, mobility, and startups. And the key outcomes are like creating a joint working group on countering the terrorism, to strong defense technology collaboration, agreements on cybersecurity, AI space, and R&D, and expansion of startups and academic partnership. It happened due to the geopolitical uncertainty in Europe and Asia, like the Ukraine war, West Asian tension, and Europe seeking diversified partnership, and India rising defense and tech ecosystems. India is now exporting defense systems and expanding aerospace and AI capabilities. And moreover, they want to counter terrorism convergence. Both countries agreed to strengthen the cooperation via a joint working group on counter terrorism. It directly affected the Indian government ministries, Austrian government and industries, and tech and R&D institutions. Indirectly, it had affected the Indian startups, European defense supply chain firms, cybersecurity and AI companies, and trade logistic players. Immediately, you will see that the institutional corporation setup, business confidence boost, and tech collaboration acceleration. And in long run, you will see that there will be a India-Europe defense tech ecosystem expansion. Education and tech mobility will grow, and defense industrial collaboration will be there. A strategic diversification for India. Execution gap risk, slow bureaucracy, geopolitical environment complexity are some of the risks involved, and opportunities forming are there will be high value tech collaboration, defense manufacturing growth, startup and innovation, ecosystem expansion, and still workforce mobility. So what should you do? You should tap into the Europe-India partnership corridors, focus on the defense supply chain, precision manufacturing, and industrial machinery, and build cross-border collaboration capability aligned with the Europe engineering standard and joint R&D frameworks, and enter the defense tech adjacency markets like the cybersecurity, AI systems, and industrial automations. This isn't diplomacy, it's industrial positioning. Now, here is something, a different kind of shift regulation, and it directly affects the manufacturing cost. OSHA has proposed a rule to remove the 2036 compliance deadline for upgrading the fixed ladders over 24 feet with the personal fall arrest systems, ladder safety systems. These changes affect industries like the petroleum refining, chemical manufacturing, and the logistics heavy sectors. Instead of forcing retrofits by 2036, companies would be allowed to upgrade ladders when they reach end of service life. And it happened because the industry pushed back on the high compliance cost. It is the main driver for this. And moreover, the safety benefits of retrofits, the aging in the infrastructure reality, regulatory, the modernization trend, and geopolitical and industrial competitive pressure. These are the reasons that it has happened. And directly, the petroleum refineries, chemical manufacturers, OSHA regulated employers are with fixed ladders are affected, and indirectly, the industrial contractors, maintenance and engineering firms, logistics, utilities, and mining sectors, and workers using elevated access systems are affected. In short run, you will see compliance relief expectations, uncertainty in planning, safety planning, and industry lobbying success signal. But in long run, you will see there will be a shift to life cycle based safety regulation and slower safety modernization pace. And worker safety variability, liability risk, and uneven safety standards are the risk involved in it. And opportunities are the that there will be major cost savings, operational flexibility, capital reallocation, and industry competitiveness boost. So what should you do? You should audit ladder infrastructure immediately, identify which ladders are compliant and which are legacy systems, and align upgrade with asset lifecycle. You should plan upgrades during the maintenance shutdowns and replacement cycles, and build risk-based safety mapping. Prioritize high risk, high traffic ladders and high risk environments. And you should engage with regulatory development, submit feedback during comment period, and monitor OSHA final ruling. And compliance isn't just about rules, it's about the risk. Now let's talk about sustainability because it's becoming a manufacturing opportunity. The US Environmental Protection Agency EPA is considering a rule change that would ease regulations on chemical plastic recycling, especially the pyrolysis-based systems. The proposal would likely reclassify certain chemical recycling processes as manufacturing instead of incineration or waste disposal. And they are removing them from the stricter air pollution rules under Section 129 of the Clean Air Act. And this would reduce compliance burden on companies operating the pyrolysis plants and advanced recycling facilities. It happened because the industry lobbying pressure, which is the main driver for this. And moreover, there's a low plastic recycling rates in the US. Over 90% of the plastics are not recycled. And companies argue that the advanced recycling is needed to scale circular economy. Moreover, EPA provisions are classified under pyrolysis under incineration like rule section 129. Industry claims this is a scientific inaccurate and legally unclear. Moreover, there is a push to scale advanced recycling infrastructure. So directly the chemical recycling companies, plastic manufacturers, EPA regulatory systems are affected, and directly the communities near recycling plants, environmental NGOs, packaging industry, waste management sectors, consumer good companies are affected. In short run, you will see that there will be regulatory uncertainty will increase and environmental opposition will intensify. Industry lobbying will accelerate, and in long run, you will see chemical recycling become mainstream manufacturing. Regulatory fragmentation risk and environmental governance shift. There is a high pollution exposure risk, regulatory loopholes, legal disputes, public trust issues are the risk involved. And the opportunities which can grab are there will be massive scaling of recycling infrastructure, strong investment flow, and a circular economy acceleration and industrial innovation. So what you should do? You should prepare for regulatory transition. treat chemical recycling as emerging manufacturing category, and invest in compliance-ready systems. Even if rules relax, maintain a emission tracking safety system and reporting framework. And you should position for circular economic demand, build capability to use recycled chemical feedstocks, and engage in policy shaping. Participate in the EPA comment processes industry association. And this is where regulation creates opportunity. And now, geopolitics again. China may restrict solar equipment exports. China is considering restricting exports of advanced solar manufacturing equipment to the US, and Chinese officials have already had preliminary talks with the equipment suppliers, but no formal rule has been initialized yet, and it's still in the early stage consultation. The potential restrictions would target high-end solar cell manufacturing machinery, advanced production technology used in panel fabrication, and China dominates the global solar supply chain. It produces 80% of the global solar panel components and controls most leading solar equipment manufacturers. It happened because US-China tech and industrial rivalry, protection of China's manufacturing dominance, trade leverage strategy, overcapacity in Chinese solar industry, and response to the US industrial policy are the reasons why it had happened. So directly, the US solar manufacturers, Chinese solar equipment makers are affected, and indirectly, the renewable energy suppliers, utility scale solar projects, and investments in clean energy stocks are affected. Immediately, you should supply see supply chain uncertainty will rise, investment hesitation among the investors, market volatility in clean energy stocks, and negotiation leverage will shift. In long run, you will see solar supply chain fragmentation, higher cost of solar deployment in the US, and strategic competition in the clean energy tech. There are certain risks involved, like the solar supply chain disruption, global energy, clean energy slowdown risk, and trade acceleration risk, and opportunities which you can grab. US domestic solar manufacturing boost, which you can grab as early and should grab as early as possible to ride the wave. And alternative supplier growth, energy security push, and new industrial ecosystems are the opportunities forming. What you should do, you should diversify equipment sourcing, avoid over dependence on single country supply chains, invest in localized manufacturing capacity, and build domestic solar equipment ecosystems. You should prepare for policy driven volatility, treat solar supply chain as geopolitical asset class, and strengthen the multi country partnerships and collaborate with India and Europe. Once again, supply chains are becoming weapons. Now let's see some technology and innovation part. Now let's go inside the factory, because this is where the real transformation is happening. Manufacturing is rapidly shifting towards the advanced automation system powered by AI, robotics, and digital ecosystems. Key changes highlighted are like the factories are becoming intelligent ecosystems instead of isolated production units. Automation is moving from pilot projects to standard operating infrastructure, and it's a very heavy adoption of AI-driven decision systems, collaborative robots, twins, and simulation-based design. It happened because of Industry 4.0 acceleration, AI, IoT, cloud, etc. Because the goal is to increase speed, improve visibility, and improve resilience. Global pressure on manufacturers. Manufacturers are forced to deal with supply chain disruption, tariffs, labor shortages, and rising cost pressure. And there is a demand for efficiency and cost reduction. So automation helps to reduce waste, increase throughput, and lower per unit cost. So it has directly affected the manufacturers, which are tier 1, tier 2, and OEM suppliers and factory operators, and indirectly the workforce and equipment suppliers, software companies, and the consumers. Immediately, you will see there will be a rapid adoption of AI and robotics, shift in the workforce roles, increased digital integration, and investment in automation will rise. And in long run, you will see there will be a fully autonomous factories, partial reality, but can happen. Digital twin becomes standard, and hyper-connected supply chains, workforce transmission. There are certain risks involved, like high capital cost barrier, which is very difficult for especially SMEs. So there are certain cybersecurity risk involved, and ROI is uncertainty for mid-sized firms. Opportunities forming are there will be massive productivity gains, competitive advantage through speed, predictive maintenance savings, and smarter decision making. So what you should do, you should start with process optimization first. Don't automate chaos. First,
fix workflows first before adding robots, and invest in digital backbone like core system, PLM, MES, ERP integration, and adopt incremental automation. Start with the machine monitoring, predictive maintenance, and simple cobots. Then focus on integration, not just on tool, because biggest value is system talking to each other. So the shift is clear from machines to the systems. Then we will see, then there is something interesting that has happened. A struggling shoe manufacturer company, Allbirds, has made a dramatic strategic shift from the footwear production to a AI infrastructure and GPU computing services, which nobody had ever thought of. And the company announced it will rebrand as Newbird AI. It is exiting core shoe manufacturing operation, and it will use $50 million funding to build AI compute infrastructure. And the new business model is becoming a GPU as a service, GPUs provider, renting computing power to AI companies. It happened because declining core businesses, footwear collapse, AI infrastructure boom, and capital market incentives and asset reuse opportunity. It has directly affected the shoe manufacturer, investors, shareholders, AI infrastructure startups, and indirectly the traditional footwear industry, the GPU suppliers, retail and apparel sector. In short run, you will see stock volatility explosion, capital inflow for pivot, and industry's capitalism will rise. In long run, you will see there will be a new trend, manufacturing to the AI pivots, which is very, very interesting to see. And blurring of the industry boundaries and high failure probability for weak pivot. So be careful before you pivot to AI. And so there are certain risks involved like the execution failure risk, the capital intensity risk, the bubble risk, competitive disadvantage, and the opportunities which you can grab access to the AI boom upside. Asset repurposing, investor narrative advantage, and new hybrid business model. So what you should do, you should don't blindly pivot, build capability first. AI infrastructure requires deep technical expertise, operational scale. Identify realistic urgency opportunities. Better paths are factory automation, industrial AI system, supply chain software. So evaluate capital intensity carefully. AI infra is capex heavy and long payable cycle. And moving on to the next one is humanoid robots are increasingly being showcased and deployed for real manufacturing use cases, not just lab experiment or demonstrations. Robots performing factory tasks like assembly support, material handling, inspection, logistics, and multiple companies demonstrating humanoids that can work alongside humans, navigate factory environments, perform flexible multi-step tasks. It happened because of labor shortage crisis, and it is globally. Manufacturing industries face aging workforce, shortage of skilled labor, difficulty filling repetitive and hazardous roles. Moreover, rapid AI and robotics convergence is happening there, and demand for flexible automation because traditional robots are rigid, task specific, and humanoids offers adaptability, multitask capability, and human like workspace compatibility. Directly, the manufacturing companies, industrial automation providers are affected. Indirectly, the factory workers, industrial equipment suppliers, AI software companies are affected. In short run, you will see that there will be a pilot deployment increase and investment surge in robotics. And factory experimentation phase productivity testing will begin. And in long run, you will see human compatible automation becomes a standard. Labor model transformation and cost decline accelerates upon adoption. Certain risks involved in this will be there will be a high failure rate in real world environments and job displacement concerns and cybersecurity and system risks will always be there. And opportunities forming are there will be massive productivity boost, flexible automation advantage, new manufacturing model, and supply chain efficiency gain. So what you should do, you should not start with the hybrid automation strategy. Do not replace everything, combine humans, cobots, and humanoids, which is a very strategic move. And identify your high ROI tasks first. Best starting points will be material handling, inspection, repetitive assembly support. Run pilot programs before scaling. Measure your productivity gain, failure rate, and integration complexity. Moving on to the next section, which is the investment and company moves. Let's start with where serious money is going. Defense manufacturing. A $1 billion investment is being pushed into missile production capacity. L3Harris Technologies announced a massive expansion of its solid rocket motor advanced propulsion manufacturing site in Orange County, Virginia. $1.27 billion expansion. And it will be more than double manufacturing scale. It happened due to rising global defense demands, US mission production bottlenecks, and it is shift toward domestic supply, defense supply chain resilience. And L3 Harris Technologies, US Department of Defense, are affected by this directly and indirectly. The defense contractors, aerospace engineering, and local manufacturing supply chains are affected. In short run, you will see there the construction and the job creation boost, defense stock optimism, and supply chain activation will be there, and capacity expansion. And in long run, you will see that the US missile industrial base expansion, stronger military industrial integration will happen. There are certain risks involved. There will be high dependency on defense cycles, political risks are involved, and opportunities forming. There will be massive long-term demand visibility, technological leadership in propulsion systems, and regional economic transformation. So what you should do, you should enter defense supply chain positioning, focus on the aerospace, components, precision manufacturing, and material engineering, and invest in high specific manufacturing capability. And the required capabilities will be quality control systems, aerospace grade systems, aerospace grade materials, process automation, and align with the government backed industries, because defense and aerospace is long term stable demand sectors. So the governments are no longer just buyers, they are becoming long term investors in manufacturing. And moving on to the next one, Ford EV chief digital and design officer Doug Field is leaving the company after nearly 5 years, and his exit comes during a major internal restructuring of the Ford EV and software operations. The key changes that was announced alongside his departure were Ford is merging EV design and manufacturing units into a new structure called the Product Creation and Industrialization, and leadership will now be centralized under COO Kumar Galhotra. No direct replacement for the field will be appointed. It happened because of weak EV profitability, shift from innovation phase to execution phase, and need for faster product rollout. Immediately, directly the Ford Motor Company, Dow Field, and EV team, leadership team, automotive engineering workforce are affected. Indirectly, the software and automation tech vendors, battery manufacturers, EV supply chain suppliers, and US auto manufacturing companies are affected. In short term, you will see there will be a leadership transition, uncertainty, and increased focus on upcoming EV launches. In long run, Ford EV strategy will become cost first and consolidation of EV development structure. There are certain risks involved, like the execution disruption leads, loss of innovation as structural EV losses, and opportunities forming are leaner EV structure, lower cost EV platform potential, and improved capital discipline. So what you should do, you should shift focus from a innovation hype to execution efficiency. EV success now depends on the cost control and manufacturing scalability. So you should build platform-based production systems and integrate engineering manufacturing teams, and departure for the price-driven EV competition, because future EV wars is cost and scalable battle. And Ford announced a major product and manufacturing overhaul that will refresh 80% of its North American manufacturing lineup by 2029. It includes restructuring the next generation F-150 and supply duty trucks, a new mid-size pickup built on the Ford's Universal EV platform, and the board portfolio update across SUVs, trucks, EVs, and hybrids. It happened because of EV transition correction and competitive pressures, and shift to a platform-based manufacturing, and moreover, the main reason, the profitability pressure. It affected the Ford EV company, the manufacturing plants in North America, and directly the Tier 1 auto suppliers, software, ADAS companies, which you can see here. And in short run, you will see there will be internal restructuring disruption, focused towards the trucks, investor reaction volatility, and in future, you will see Ford becomes a platform-driven manufacturer, and EV and a hybrid convergences and faster product cycles. There are certain risks involved: execution complexity, competition lag, supply chain strain, and opportunities forming are there will be massive efficiency gains, faster innovation cycles, and scalable EV architecture. What you should do, you should align with the platform-based manufacturing trend, focus on modular components, standardized systems, and prepare for the faster product cycles. Suppliers must adapt to the short design to product timelines, not long, and invest in software and hybrid integration capability, because automation supply chain is becoming digital and physical hybrid system. Position for the Ford EU EV ecosystem, opportunity in EV components, lightweight materials, and electronics integration. Moving on to the next one. Taiwan-based battery company Apogee Power has selected Kansas, Liberal USA, for its first ever US manufacturing facility, and the plant will focus on lithium iron phosphate LFP battery systems and energy storage for industrial, commercial, and grid uses. This investment is $16 million initial phase and job created around 80, and operations expected starts in summer 2026. It happened because US energy storage demand explosion, which is the main driver for this supply chain localization trend and strategic US footprint expansion. Immediately, it has directly affected the Apogee Power, US energy storage manufacturers, and Kansas industrial ecosystem and battery supply chain partners, and indirectly the renewable energy developers, logistics and industrial infrastructure companies, and competitors in China, Korea, and US battery markets. And immediately we'll see there will be a local manufacturing boost, supply chain will diversification will begin immediately, and early stage capability build out and industrial confidence signaling. And in long run, in future, you will see US energy to storage manufacturing cluster growth, localization of global battery supply chain, and grid scale storage expansion acceleration, and strategic decoupling of energy tech supply chain. Risk involved, scale limitations, cost competitive challenges, supply chain dependency remains competitive pressure, and opportunities forming are US energy independence push, growth of grid storage market, and foreign investments inflow into US manufacturing and regional industrial transformation. And what you should do, you should enter energy storage supply chain as early as possible because there are opportunities in battery components, thermal systems, and closure and industrial integration. And you should build localization strategy, shift from the export only to dual manufacturing footprint, and focus on grid and industrial battery demand because biggest near-term growth areas versus EV alone. And partner with the foreign entrants, Taiwanese and Korean firms expanding to the US. Now, if you connect all of these moves, money is going into defense, scale, compliance, and supply chain control. And that tells you exactly where manufacturing is heading next. Now let's talk a shift that most manufacturers are underestimating. Not technology, but people. Because while factories are investing in AI, companies like Google are investing in the workforce behind it. Google announced a $10 million funding initiative to support the Manufacturing Institute in the United States, and the funding will be used to develop AI-focused training programs for manufacturing workers and expand apprenticeship systems across 15 plus US regions. And the key programs being created will be AI 101 for manufacturing and advanced AI manufacturing technicians. It happened because of massive manufacturing skill gaps. AI adoption is outpacing workforce readiness and big tech expansion into industrial ecosystem and moreover manufacturing productivity pressure. And there is a strategic positioning. This is a strategic positioning for AI economy. Directly, the US manufacturing workers, manufacturing institutes, Google industrial employees are Google industrial employers are affected, and indirectly the global manufacturers adopting AI, industrial training institution, robotics, and AI vendors. Immediately, we'll see there will be launch of AI programs and apprenticeship expansion, workforce upskilling will become, and there will be a strong narrative shift that will happen, and you will see it. In long run, you will see that AI will become standard manufacturing skill and hybrid workforce model will evolve, and productivity jump in manufacturing and big tech embedding industrial workforce ecosystem will happen. There are certain risks involved, workforce replacement, anxiety, skill gap transition period, and dependency on big tech ecosystem. And opportunities that are forming will be massive productivity gains, faster AI adoption in manufacturing, and stronger industrial competitiveness. So what you should do, you should start AI upskilling internally. Don't fear for the external programs. Train workers in AI tools, digital systems, integrate AI in shop floor operations, and use AI for maintenance, prediction, quality control, and production optimization. And you should partner with training ecosystems. Join programs like Manufacturing Institute, Pay Model, and the AI Training Initiative. So the real bottleneck is not AI itself. It's the people using it. And at the same time, another workforce shift is happening outside the factory. Nestle and the International Labour Organization, ILO, have expanded their long strategic partnerships to launch a new two-year initiative focused on improving labor conditions in the coffee supply chains. And the program focuses on key coffee producing countries, Brazil, Colombia, and Mexico. And the initiatives aims to improve the fair recruitment practices, strengthen workforce protection systems, and reduce labor right violation in supply chains. It happened because of persistent labor issues in the agriculture, supply chain transparency pressure, and institution collaboration model. So directly the coffee farmers, Nestle supply chain operations, and ILO labor governance programs are affected, and directly global coffee industry, agricultural exporters, and consumer good companies are affected. Immediate impact that you will see that new labor programs will be launched. There will be increased monitoring of coffee supply chains and knowledge sharing systems will be activated. In long run, you will see there will be formalization of agricultural labor systems and a strong ESG enforcement in sourcing. There are certain risks involved like the ESG washing criticism, cost increase risk and fragmentation adoption are the risk involved. So you should keep them in mind. And there are certain opportunities which you can grab and these are forming. There will be a stronger supply chain stability, brand trust improvement and productivity gains and ESG driven investment attraction. So what you should do, you should build traceable supply chains, implement supplier tracking system, labor monitoring tools, align with the international labor frameworks, follow the ILO standards, ESG reporting framework, and you should digitize supply chain visibility. Use the data platforms, blockchain, traceability systems where relevant, and strengthen the supplier training, focus on fair labor practices and recruitment transparency. And so your workforce is no longer just internal, it extends across your entire supply chain. So what's interesting is the companies that win are not always the biggest. They are the ones that adapt faster. If you want to improve how your manufacturing business actually runs, not just consume information, there is a deeper way to do that. There is a link in the description. Go and book a call with me, and we will see how we can make it happen. If you look at all of this together, there is a clear pattern. Costs are becoming unpredictable, supply chains are becoming political, and factories are becoming smarter. And that makes manufacturing more competitive, more complex, and less forbidden. The companies that adapt early will have an unfair advantage. So thank you. That's it for this week. And thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe.